let's talk about the stereotypes of what it means to be African. If you talk about black history or African history, a few things come to mind: slavery, oppression, racism, what have you. These are the things that have been etched into our very existences. These are the things that seem to define who we are. And these are the things that people see when they meet us, because that's what they've been exposed to. These are the kind of images, these are the kind of, imagery that are portrayed when they talk about Africa. It's always, sort of demeaning, and it was a cause for worry, but we decided that we would have to take a step towards the right direction to change that. And Africans generally are, sorry to say, we seem to be a lost race, generally, because we're drifting farther and farther from our true identity, which is understandable, because we have to move forward with technology and everything, but the essence of who we are is lost. And we are even the lucky ones, because we are basically situated still in Nigeria, we're close to home, we can identify a bit with who, our past and everything, but if you talk of the black communities that have been displaced due to racism and all that, they're basically lost, and they have no choice but to identify with wherever they're situated. The race thing is basically a cause for concern, because once a foreigner sees a black person, they tend to feel, there's no worth there. That's why there's racism. They don't feel any worth because you are not projecting your worth. They don't know who you are because you're emulating them. You're basically mirroring their concepts, mirroring their identity. So, they just see you as chaff. So, like I said, we mirror the Western culture without projecting our own. And once we don't project our culture, we don't have an identity. And that's what makes us lost as a people. Something I saw online, which was talking about language, which is very key to our heritage, and it's one of the things that actually identifies us as a people. Because language discloses cultural and historical meaning, the loss of language is a loss of all that links us to the past. Without a link to the past, people in a culture lose their sense of place, purpose, and path. One must know where one came from to know where one is going. Why I talked about the language thing was something interesting happened yesterday when I was speaking to one of my TEDx colleagues. We were having a very long conversation. I don't know, Mr. Jeffrey, who was on stage some minutes ago. He told me basically that the English language had penetrated our culture so much that even our languages, even the words in our different languages have been kind of modernized and diffused. He gave me an example of a word. When they say trash in Yoruba, a lot of people know it as idoti, but it was actually derived from the English word dirty. So that's not the actual word. The actual word is egbin. I hope I pronounced that right, because I didn't even know until yesterday. And I felt so ashamed of myself, and I went back to my hotel room and laid down on my bed. I started thinking of my life and what else I didn't know. Because, it was another eye-opener for me, but, it was a good one. So I grew up watching a lot of Indian movies, Chinese movies. When you talk about the Sholais, Nagin, Mad, and even the music, were things that were evergreen. If I start singing, my singing is very bad, so forgive me, but I know that there are some people who grew up on these things that will recognize Johnny Man. You see, I didn't even need to go on. So, these are things that we grew up on. And one thing struck, all of them were different movies and everything, but there was something quite similar, and I kept watching. And it was because they were actually projecting their culture unapologetically. They did not care what you thought. This is who we are. Accept it. You understand? That's exactly what we're seeing there. And it was quite enjoyable to watch. And I learned a lot from there. And, I knew a lot about India, and I've never been to India. So they were actually educating me through their movies. So that kind of struck, there was a light bulb in my head. I said, why isn't it the same here? Why do we look at our culture as local? I also watched the movie Apocalypto by Mel Gibson. He made this movie, and it's based on the Mayan culture. And the whole movie was not in English. It was basically subtitled. But it was one of the most interesting movies I've ever watched. And I could understand it. And I learned a lot from it about the Mayan culture. So it felt like I was learning as I was watching, which was very interesting. So this is basically the Africa the world sees. Once you say African, first thing that comes to mind is Nigerian prince, scammer, Boko Haram, kidnapping, Bobrisky. So these are the things that basically they see. They have no other choice but to accept what you've given them. You understand? The younger generation, they're basically adopting what they see on TV. These generations, they get smarter by the day. And what they see, they soak up. And you can't blame them for adopting other cultures because they're not exposed to their own. We live in a religious society whereby we see culture as fetish. And as we turn our backs on our culture, other cultures will not look at us with respect. So what's the solution for cultural preservation? I don't have all the answers, but I've tried my best to do what I can. I'm an animator, so that's the tool I use. A carpenter will use a hammer, a pastor will use the pulpit, but what I have is what I can use. So in 2010, I was working on a project based on the deity Shango, which is quite popular. I was working on it. It seemed like it was for fun because I didn't really see the means of taking it further. So when I created this artwork, it kind of took a life of its own. Everybody seemed to love it. It spread all over the internet. If you Google Shango Yoruba, this is one of the first images that comes up. It's used on blogs all over to talk about the Yoruba culture and history and all that. After working on this, I had to take it a step further, obviously, but I had to wait until, everything seemed right, the timing seemed right and all that. I did some research on Shango, and I realized that he was, of course, he was basically, a Yoruba deity and all that, but then again, he was being worshipped and respected in other civilizations, the Latin Americans, Cuba. But basically, it left our shores and people revered him, So, and that means the culture was rich enough for them to appreciate. And then I also noticed that if you look behind me, Marvel and DC Comics featured Shango in the 1980s and 90s as a character, as part of the Orishas. I think they were doing like the African Avengers or something. And basically, he was featured in there. So Shango has striking similarities to, yes, he has striking similarities. I don't want to say much about that, but, if you don't do anything, they will do it for you. You understand? Shango is such an interesting character, and they saw that. Of course, he was part of Norse mythology, but, the way they packaged Thor, they packaged him in such a way that he seemed to be the only one, that had these abilities or, was this powerful. There's something I call the Black Excellence Movement that's happening right now. You notice that back in the day, musicians, if you go to parties and all that, you listen to foreign music and blah, blah, blah. That was what was actually playing back in the time. But after a period of time, Nigerian music became mainstay. You won't really hear any foreign music in clubs anymore. And it went out. People appreciate it all over the world. Most of our artists are, touring the world, performing their songs to all sorts of crowds. And it's being appreciated and they're being celebrated. Another example of a notable person who is not really a friend of mine, but we've chatted a bit, because what he was doing was quite interesting. Laolu, I don't know if some of you follow him too. He basically is, I would say, a conceptual artist. He paints on the human body. He calls it his canvas. You understand? And he calls this art form this sacred art of the Ori. Now, this was, some of his artwork was featured in Beyonce's video. A lot of celebrities, American celebrities, are now adopting it. Most of his work can now be seen on jackets, on Nike sneakers, and all that, because people are now gravitating towards Africa. They're saturated with every other thing, and they're saying that Africa is the next big thing. It went as far as him having a deal with Bulgari recently, whereby they made a limited edition scent of a perfume based on this sacred art of the Ori. You understand? So, brands are taking notice, everybody is taking notice, and everybody wants to know what Africa has in store. Disney was not also left out. They recently came to Africa. They met with a South African company called Triggerfish Studios, one of the biggest and my main competitors in South Africa. So they met with them, and they were trying to mine African stories. So they made it like a contest, submit your stories, and get the chance of it being a Disney movie and all that. Now, they also worked on one of their most recent projects too, Queen of Cartway also, which is, as you can see what I'm saying, it's also an African tale, and this is Disney. This is another one, Marvel Studios working on their Black Panther comic. They're turning it into a movie. It's really been celebrated all over the world. A lot of people are excited. So this is like just an Afrofuturism project based on a mythical nation, what they call it, mythical nation called, what's that? Wakanda, yeah. So now there's another lady, Nnedi Okorafor, who is being celebrated currently for being, she's been there and she's been behind the scenes for a while doing a lot of work, but she's recently been celebrated for her writing. And Marvel also picked her up to work on the new series of Black Panther. And the reason why they did that is because they want more authenticity. Now, the project we're working on, or the project, we worked on and we're working on, is basically an origin story of Shango. So we wanted to try and delve into that and have some creative license to go a little crazy with that while still staying true to the culture. In order to create these kind of things, a lot of resources are required. I had to look for a solution because I couldn't employ hundreds of animators like the Disneys and the DreamWorks do. So I had to improvise. I needed to get a motion capture system. And motion capture is basically an apparatus that you wear on your body, and it records your motions. So basically you can translate that into, I don't want to go too technical, but you can translate that into a 3D character, an animated character. Now, the reason why we're even going the route of animation and not just a regular feature film was because we could go as epic as we wanted, and also we realized that it could cut across a lot of demographics. There are a lot of old people who can appreciate animation, especially if the story is rich and mature, and the visuals also grab the young ones. So in order to acquire a motion capture suit, I didn't have the money. So I started scouting the internet, and I noticed a Chinese company who had a Kickstarter project, and they wanted people to fund a very, very clever apparatus that was going to serve as a motion capture system, but cheap for the masses. So with the little money I had, I funded the project. I added my token to the project, and I got a free motion capture suit. I called a few of my friends, talented friends in different areas. And I told them that I want to work on a Shango project. I need you guys on board. I don't have money to pay you guys. And I don't want to tell you people's story. This is my passion. This is my dream. This is something I want to do. But I believe that if it's done well, it would create a ripple effect. And I told them that. But there's a caveat to it's going to be in Yoruba. So there was a brief silence. Each person I told, there was a brief silence. But I knew that in front of me, they didn't want to say much. But there was one person I met who said, no, I can't do it in Yoruba now. It will be local. Now, I've talked about the body motion capture, but for the facial, because we wanted it to be as appealing as possible. So rather than create a documentary or something, we had to create something entertaining and something that they kind of recognized over there globally. You understand? And once they see the visuals are similar to theirs, it hooks them, then they now follow the story and see that the story is rich, and it gets them more curious. In order to get that done, I contacted a French company, which they deal in facial motion capture, and they basically service Hollywood. And I told them that, hey, my name is Olarewaju, blah, blah, blah. I have this project, and I feel you guys can come on board. I don't have the money, I don't have the, to pay for your stuff, but if you can give me some kind of support to really go a long way. So they did that. They now checked, at least my company website looks a little rich, so they were like, okay, they did, some background checks on me and said, okay, fine. We would support you. We'll give you 2 months free. Use it, do whatever you want. Let's see how it comes out. So we went about creating the short film. It took about a year of planning and 2 months of execution. And by the time the 2 months was up, we had, when I watched the thing for the first time, I had goosebumps. Because, I realized that we'd done something that was at least close to what I had in mind. But we didn't know what the reception would be. To our surprise, once we let it out, it spread like wildfire. I had no control over what was going on anymore. It started getting featured everywhere. And, there were a lot of forums where international, people from all over the world were watching it and, appreciating it and sending me messages. And I was like, are you sure you're okay with this? So I was like, yeah, they love it. I said, it's in Yoruba. They were like, that's why they love it. Because, okay, cool. So, so what I feel is we are the ones actually hindering ourselves. These guys are ready for us. They are curious. This kind of proved it to me, and, we were everywhere. Of course, Nigeria loved it, which was a bit unexpected and expected, but, we're very happy with what what people were saying about it. It was also nominated for a couple of film festival awards recently. We haven't won yet, but fingers crossed. And everybody seems to be gravitating towards it. These are just a few comments that flooded Facebook. A lot of people saying, who cares about Game of Thrones when we have Shango? And I was very humbled. I'm going to allow you to watch it.
Bàbá, mo fẹ́ mọ̀ nípa ọjọ́ ọ̀la mi ni.
Sùúrù ọmọ mi, sùúrù. Rántí pé kò sí bílẹ̀ sí lè sú tó. Ojúmọ́ mọ́ dandan.
Mo mọ̀ bàbá, mo kàn wulẹ̀ fẹ́ gbáradì ni, mo gbọ́dọ̀ mọ̀.
Kò burú, mú kàrẹ́ mi. Ó ń ṣe ọ́ bí ikọ̀ tí mo ń tọ́ dà lọ́la. Ṣùgbọ́n àìgbọ́n sí ohun tá a bá mọ̀. Ẹlẹ́dàá rẹ̀ lágbára pọ̀. Òun náà ni ó sì ṣamọ̀nà bí gbogbo òpin rẹ̀ ó sì tú ọ lọ. Ọ fojú rinjú pẹ̀lú àwọn ẹrù mọ̀lẹ̀. Ẹ̀bọ̀ra ojú sánmà. Àtẹ̀bọ̀ra nú omi. Àtòfìsí ògùn rán ni ọ́. Ìwọ́lẹ́ni náà tá a yàn tí ó gbé ògo olúborí gbogbo lẹ̀kílẹ̀. Àtọ̀làjú kọ́ làjú ga. Wọ́n ó rọ lágbára tó kọjú òye rẹ̀. Ọ̀pọ̀ ni ó máa fẹ́ ọ lójú fẹ́ ọ lẹ́nu. Àpòtagìrì ló ń jẹ fún pé èèyàn. Bí mọ̀nàmọ́ná ṣe ń bára rẹ̀ ṣiṣẹ́ yìí tó sì ń yọná lẹ́nu bí òrìṣà. Bẹ́ẹ̀ lágbára rẹ̀ ó fara pẹ́ ti mọ́tò àtọwọ́dọ́wọ́. Ṣùgbọ́n agbára yìí kan náà tí ó mú kógo rẹ̀ búyọ yìí náà ni ó gbé ìṣubú rẹ̀ o. Tó bá wá kù wọ́ nìkan kọ́ tẹ́rù ara rẹ̀ pa. Ṣàngó.
Wọ́n dájú pé òun ẹni tí ń jẹ́ so ṣetán láti wádìí.